Hello guys, today we're going to talk about relative clauses. Relative clauses are in Korean 관계사절 and and these are what I want to call them usually adjective clauses in general. Adjective clauses, I want to call these adjective clauses because they usually modify a noun. And as far as we know, we usually modify a noun with an adjective, right? So in other words, it's an adjective clause. These clauses, of course, start with relative pronouns, what you know by 관계 대명사 in Korean. Okay, and you use something like who, which, whose, whom, what, there, that, where, things like that, and they usually come right after the noun. So for example, I met a man. What kind of man did you meet? Well, you want to say it's a handsome man. So in that case, we usually have adjective right before the noun. So adjective comes first and then the noun comes, right? But if you want to use a clause to explain about this man a little longer, then comes noun first, and then comes an adjective clause. Now, what was the meaning of the clause? Again, a clause is something that has a subject and a verb. And this here, we can see how this is acting like a subject, and a verb. So basically, this is a clause, and it modifies a noun right before this, and therefore it is called an adjective clause. The good thing about these adjective clauses is that you can also end up using both one adjective and an adjective clause at the same time to express or give a little more information about this noun, right? And this is being more descriptive. Now, instead of just saying let's say I met a handsome, tall, handsome man, this is okay, but you can also say I met a tall man, but what kind of tall man was this? Well, he was handsome. Okay, so you can use a noun phrase. We call this a phrase because it doesn't have a subject and a verb, but it's more than one word, so it's just more than a noun, right? Tall modifies the noun, and the relative clause also modifies the noun. You can also use indefinite pronoun, someone, anyone, everyone, things like that. Also coming with a relative clause. So these are called relative clauses or adjective clauses, okay? Now, there are two types of relative clauses. One we call restrictive. In Korean, we call this 제한적 용법. And B, the second one, is non-restrictive, what we call 계속적 용법. Okay, so it's important that you understand both these types because sometimes using commas in appropriate places for these, depending on the types of these relative clauses, can make your meanings different. Okay, so let's take a look at the first example. Relative clauses, of course, identify a noun, and restrictive relative clauses, relative clauses modify a noun, but restrictive relative clauses identify a noun. This means that this information that you see in the restrictive relative clauses is absolutely necessary to understand the noun. For example, a hero is someone. He or she embodies the best human qualities. Okay, let's say you just had this sentence, a hero is someone. Does this make any sense to you? No, we need more information. If we don't have information, this sentence is just useless. Therefore, this part of the sentence here, the second part, is very important. It's absolutely necessary. So in this case, we can call this restrictive relative clause. So you combine these two by using he or she, you change it to relative pronoun who or that. Okay? So the rest is the same. Take a look at the next example. A book is on the table. Now, does this make sense to you? Well, it does, but it does not convey the original meaning of the person who is trying to say this. He's not just trying to say a book is on the table. Actually, he's trying to talk about his main point is about the book being a bestseller. So, in this case, this information here is also absolutely necessary. If we take out this sentence, it would completely distort the original meaning of the intention of the speaker. So you combine these two by using which or that. Okay. Again, this here, the location of this a book and the book are in the subject position here. So you use subject relative pronoun. In this case, book is not a person, so you use relative pronoun which or that. You can also use the relative pronoun as an object. So for example, he's the actor. I saw him in person. So you can see that him is an object of the second sentence. And you can see that if you just stop here, he's the actor. Well, so what? There are so many actors. The main point of this speaker's intention is that he wants to say, oh, I saw him in person. Okay, so you want to combine these by using object relative pronouns whom, who, and that. In the past, a lot of conservative grammar books said, well, if you use a who here, it's wrong because who is supposed to be 주격, not 목적격. But these days, they are starting to accept this. They have been accepting this for a long time now. So we have no problem using these three choices for 목적격 or object relative pronouns. So he's the actor. This sentence comes here. And then you convert. So this part, object part, comes first. Whom, who, or that, you can choose. And then you come with the rest of the sentence in the in here. You can also do this. Take a look at the options that's available for you when you are using this as an object. Let's say we're talking about he's the actor. Okay, I told you about him. So this guy and this guy is the same guy, right? Now, one thing that's different from the previous example is that we now have 전치사, a preposition about. What are we going to do? Well, there are these ways that you can deal with this. Okay, first of all, you can say he's the actor, just like you just saw here. Who, whom, that. I told you about. So about goes next at the end. Or you can just decide to say nothing and say he's the actor I told you about. Remember, when you do this, don't forget to have 전치사 at the end. Don't drop it. There are many formal versions. This is a lot more formal version of the same sentence. You can say he's the actor. Now you pull the about here and then use whom. I told you. Now for this, if you want to use the preposition in the middle of the sentence like this, then whom is your only option, okay? You can't say he is the actor about I told you. No, we can't do that. Or about who I told you, we can't do that. about that I told you, we can't do that. Okay, the only option that's available if you want to use the word about in the middle of the sentence is using whom. Same thing with it. If you want to talk about the music, let's say, okay, music is not a person, right? So if you look, the music was good, and then in the second part of the sentence we use it as the object to the preposition, right? So we listened to it last night. So you can just decide to use the word to at the latter part of the sentence and say the music which we listened to last night was good, or the music that we listened to last night was good. Or you can just simply say nothing. The music we listened to last night was good. That's okay. But just like this example here, if you want to use the word to in the middle of the sentence, you will have to end up with this pronoun, which. This is your only option. In other words, we can't say the music to we listened last night was good. No, we can't do that. Okay, so just remember that. Also, be very careful. If you are going to use a preposition in the middle of the sentence like this, then don't put to here. Don't do this. Okay, you can use the word to only once. All right, now let's take a look at 계속적 용법, what we call non-restrictive relative clauses. Now this is extra information. Remember, in restrictive clauses, we said it's an absolutely necessary information to identify the noun. Well, in this case, it gives extra information about a noun. So even if you just skip this part, it's not gonna make any meaning difference. So let's take a look at the first example. It says, 서강 University, comma, which was founded in 1960, comma, is famous for its hardworking students. Let's say I put this out. And then I say, 서강 University is famous for its hardworking students. Does that change the original intention of the writer? No, it doesn't. That was the main message. So we are missing just one small detail, but it's okay. 있어도 그만, 없어도 그만. Right? So this is why non-restrictive clauses usually come right after proper nouns. Proper nouns are what you call 고유명사, right? The names of places or person. Why? This is because, you know, when you listen to a certain proper noun, sometimes you don't need extra information. So if I said a book is on the table and the book is a bestseller, then in that case, we have to identify the book in order for us to understand which is the best-selling book. However, if I had said Game of Thrones is a bestseller, in that case, I've already mentioned the book's name, so we all know that the book is a bestseller. I just want to give you extra information that I have this book at home. Then I say the Game of Thrones, which I have at home, is a bestseller. Now you can see that this context is completely different from the book sentence that we just talked about in restrictive relative clauses. So when you hear a proper noun, usually it's not always. Usually you can just give extra information by using non-restrictive relative clauses. Very, very important thing here is that when you're using non-restrictive clauses, you must have commas, okay? So you need to have a comma before the relative clause begins, and you need to have a comma when your relative clause finishes. Okay, this is actually the same thing as a parentheses. I mean, I know it looks very scary when you see a set of commas, but if you see a set of parentheses, it's not difficult, right? Usually what do you do when you're in a hurry and you have to read a big amount of um, text? What do? You usually skip the part where what is contained inside the parentheses, 괄호 안에 있는 거. 보통 무시하고 넘어갈 때 많잖아요, right? This is exactly what it is. Non-restrictive relative clauses uses comma, comma. And this comma here is actually the same thing as parentheses. This is also important, and I need you to remember this. In non-restrictive clauses, you can't use the relative pronoun that. So this, the second sentence, is wrong, okay? In other words, if you are really confused about the term restrictive or non-restrictive, just remember that this cannot be the combination. Comma and that together, this is not going to work. So these are the general sentence mechanics for non-restrictive relative clauses. Now let me just give you a brief overview on comparing these two different types of relative clauses. I know that you guys, some of you are a little bit confused by now, so let me give you examples. The first sentence on the left in the first restrictive clause you see is that it says chocolate that is 90% cacao is bitter. So let's say we can see that these are the two sentences that have been combined. Chocolate is bitter. This is sentence number one. And that is 90% cacao is a sentence number two. Now let's say you just took this out. Then it says chocolate is bitter. Now, is this true? No, this is not always true. If you want to make this sentence true, then you have to identify what kind of chocolate you're specifically talking about. Okay, so this information inside here is absolutely necessary information. And this is why you do not use commas. We don't want to put this in a parentheses because it is absolutely important information and we don't want our readers to skip this part. But let's take a look at the example on non-restrictive clause part. It says chocolate, comma, which is enjoyed worldwide, comma, has some health benefits. So let's just take this out for a moment and say chocolate has some health benefits. Is this true? Yeah, that's the original point. That's the original intention of the writer. That's all he wanted to say. He just added a little bit more detail saying, chocolate is being enjoyed by everyone worldwide. In that case, because this is extra information, we want to trap them inside a set of commas. Take a look at the gum example in the next. Gum that is made with natural chicle doesn't have long-lasting flavor. Again, we know that gum doesn't have long-lasting flavor. This is sentence one. And sentence two says that is made with natural chicle. Now, if we put this inside a parentheses, then it doesn't make sense. Gum doesn't have long-lasting flavor. Are we talking about every type of gum? No. So, in this case, we have to have this specific information. This is absolutely necessary. And that's why we don't want to trap them inside a set of commas. So, we can't trap them inside, and that's restrictive clause. But take a look at the non-restrictive clause version. It says bubblegum, comma, which is irresistible to children, comma, has long-lasting flavor. So if we take this out, will we still have the same meaning? Yes, we do. We want to say bubblegum has long-lasting flavor. But you know what? Did you know that bubblegum is very popular among children? He's just giving extra information. So that's why we can put comma, comma. A kitchen that has been modernized raises the value of the house. Kitchen, sentence number one, raises the value of the house. That has been modernized. This is sentence two. Now, if we take this out and say a kitchen raises the value of the house, then as long as you have a kitchen, then your house becomes very expensive. I don't think so. You can have a really, really old and dirty kitchen in any apartment. It just depends on whether it is modernized or not, which means that this information is absolutely necessary, and therefore we do not trap them inside a set of commas. On the other hand, if you look at non-restrictive clause, a kitchen, comma, in which a family gathers, comma, is the heart of the house. So if we take this out, we still end up with the main message. A kitchen is the heart of the house. That's what we've been wanting to say. But we just want to give you a reason in which the family gathers. It's just an extra piece of information. So you can put it inside a set of commas. Now, some people might be thinking, 선생님 여기 in이 왜 붙었나요? Don't panic. You can say a kitchen which family gathers in. You can put it here too. Just don't forget, you need to put comma, comma. And because we're using a comma, we cannot use that in this case. Same thing with the other sentences. We cannot use that. Nope. Okay? So this is the summary. Restrictive clauses provide important information about a noun, but non-restrictive clauses, they give extra information. Okay? So that's main difference. And you can use restrictive clause to limit the general noun to a specific group or one. So I know this sounds a little difficult. What I'm trying to say here is among the many things, you want to identify this specific thing through restrictive clause. On the other hand, non-restrictive clauses usually refer to all in general. So this is very useful when you're trying to generalize. No commas are used, and you can use that. But in non-restrictive clauses, you must have 2 commas here and there. And with commas, you can't use that. No. Okay? Restrictive clauses cannot modify singular proper nouns. For example, we can't say 서강 University. Right. Which was founded in 1960 is famous. Let's say we just had this sentence. Now, in this case, we don't have a comma, so I'm saying, well, you know what? This is absolutely necessary information to identify 서강 University. You know what this means? Then this means that 서강 University, number 1, was founded in 1960. There is another 서강 University that was founded in 1980. Maybe there's another 서강 University that was founded in 2020. In this case, we have to absolutely identify the noun 서강 University with this restrictive clause. But you know, we know that that's generally not true. We don't have options like this. So in this case, we will definitely have to have a set of commas to identify, well, you know what, guys? This is extra information. Don't panic. Of course, there can be some examples, like, you know how some universities have their second campus in other regions? For example, Gyeonggi University has a campus in Seoul, and there is another one in Suwon, right? In that case, if you want to specifically refer to the campus in Suwon, maybe you can say Gyeonggi University, which is located in Suwon, is famous. You can do that. But in general, when we are talking about proper nouns, we usually use it with a set of commas to say non-restrictive clauses. So that's what this part is also talking about. Some people might be confused. Hey, what does this mean here? Exception. When the proper noun is used as a common noun, you can use it. Well, I'm talking about something like Kleenex or Scotch tape. You know how we sometimes use the brand name as just a regular noun, right? So for example, when I say, can you pass me the Kleenex on the table? Well, in this case, we're definitely not talking about 주식 상장한 그 Kleenex. We're talking about the 휴지, right? Box, right? Of course, a lot of houses have boxes of Kleenex here and there. Maybe with person A and person B are both looking at the same tables, the same Kleenex, but they can also probably see other Kleenex boxes in the room. So we need to identify the specific Kleenex that's on the table. In this case, we will have to use the word proper noun in a restrictive clause. But that's only when we use the proper noun as a common noun, like Kleenex or Scotch tape. Now I'm going to go on to the next section here. This is an exercise example. An architect is someone. He or she designs buildings. Well, if you want to combine these two, we know that an architect is someone, and we know that this connects together, so we're going to say an architect is someone. Now we know that this is 주어 position, subject position, so we're going to use subject pronoun, who or that designs buildings. Do you understand why I could use the word that? Well, although it's a person, it's okay to use that, but not always. If this was extra information, then we couldn't have used the word that. But we know that this is absolutely necessary information to talk about an architect. Otherwise, we would just have to say an architect is someone. Dum dum, no meaning, right? So we definitely need this information. Okay. I'm gonna skip to the next part here, and this is very important. Okay, so let's take a look at this part here. Pablo Picasso, who was an artist, is very famous today. No comma, right? This means that this sentence is absolutely necessary to talk about Pablo Picasso. Would this make sense? So you needed to choose two ungrammatical sentences. Please read these 4 sentences and decide which one you think is ungrammatical and why. Okay? So you can pause the video now and think. All right. So again, this one is not possible because we don't have commas, which means that who was an artist is absolutely necessary information to talk about Pablo Picasso. Now, how many Pablo Picassos do you possibly know? It's a common sense that Pablo Picasso is a guy who is a very, very famous artist. We know, everybody knows. In this case, we don't need this information. We can just say Pablo Picasso is very famous today. But if we say the man, we don't know which man. What man are you talking about? In this case, this information is absolutely necessary. Who was an artist? Take a look at the next sentence. Pablo Picasso. Oh, okay, so we know that it's an extra piece of information. Good. All right. So is this correct? No, because we can't have this combination here. When you're using non-restrictive to give extra information, you cannot use the word that. So we can't use this. This is not grammatical. Take a look. Oh, this is perfect, right? So in this case, the answer to this question would be number 2 and I'm sorry. You know what? This is why I can't do math well. I always come up with wrong answers. Ungrammatical sentences are number 1 and number 3. Okay, so I hope you guys understand this part a lot better. And if you have any questions, please let me know. through Kakao, or maybe email me, whatever. All right, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.